Welcome back. Are you ready for chapter 11 and 12? Uh, Again, to introduce myself, if you're new, hopefully most of you have watched the previous chapters and you're up to speed. If not, the links are below to be able to start from the preface in chapter 1 to get the groundwork from where we're at right now. But going into chapter 11, when we left off last, I have a new step family that are living in the house, non-witness step family. And my sister had moved out and left the religion to go live with my dad, who was no longer a witness. And so things start to get really interesting from here on. So we'll get started with chapter 11. With Sandy gone, my stepsister Cindy had no choice anymore. I was all there was now. So we started to get closer. By high school, we had become best friends. We did everything together. In time, we'd eventually ditch school together, hang out with boyfriends together, and many other not approved by the church activities. We played records, Elton John to Led Zeppelin, and everything in between. We snuck cigarettes, played tennis, and were always laughing. As noted earlier, with Cindy's help, I continued to learn to maneuver around stepdad's volatile ways. She was accustomed to it, and her attitude created courage in me to handle his outbursts of anger. We commiserated about it. I felt less scared of him and brave enough to stand up for myself. One day, he was on a tirade about how everybody leaves their shoes in the entryway, or was it the clean clothes were not folded quickly enough? The shouting lecture went on and on about what slobs we were, how irresponsible and careless we were. It was one of many rage-fueled repeating lectures that he would shout at us every day. He was breathless after yelling and angrily glared at us from our bedroom door. As he began to walk away, I couldn't help myself. Something inside me rose up. I said, loud enough for him to hear me, I really think we should do drugs and go get pregnant so we can give him something real to yell about. Silence followed, except for his footsteps back to our door. I cringed and braced myself for the wrath. He glared at me and said, you better watch your mouth, Lippy Lorraine. Lorraine being my middle name. That name stuck. In that moment, I gave myself permission to fight back, and I didn't get killed. Sure, he was pissed, but I'd crossed a line that now was wiped away. I could speak my mind. I didn't have to cower at him. I was still pretty careful. I didn't want to intentionally poke the bear, but I no longer took endless bullshit without putting in my 2 cents. On some level, I think it made him respect me. Our relationship improved from there, as much as it could have. We were never close, but there was more of a balance now, a small measure of mutual respect for boundaries. The shy little introvert that I had always been was shrinking. The events in my life were subtly but quickly transforming me. Cindy helped me not only stand up for myself against stepdad, but she also helped me become more worldly wise. Her influence was partially responsible for my suddenly heightened interest in boys. She had kissed a boy when she was 11 or 12. I, on the other hand, was clueless. I had my crushes, but would blush at the thought of even holding hands with a boy. But Cindy's tales of boys at the roller skating rink where she used to hang out had piqued my interest. By the time I was in 8th grade, I looked closer to 17 than 13. Showing up the first day of school that year wearing tight powder blue dittos on my new curves, wallabies on my feet, and suddenly sporting a woman's physique topped off with a Farrah Fawcett haircut got me a little more attention from the guys. Cindy and I had more boyfriends that year than we could count. Not on purpose, but these formative years did not exactly breed long-lasting relationships, at least not for me. This was one of the many things I kept from my mom as a teenager. As is the case with most adolescents, I started to have interests that weren't okay with mom or the church's rules. I rationalized that some rules were worth bending, but I knew I had to keep it secret. I would watch Marcia and Jan Brady on TV and marvel at how they could openly and honestly talk about their boyfriends and crushes with their parents. I couldn't even imagine that possibility. The first boy I ever kissed was Kevin. We met after school in the alley just a block north of Foothill Boulevard, Monrovia's main drag. We each sat on our 10 speeds facing each other, and he leaned from his bike toward mine and kissed me. I was hooked. Couldn't wait to do this again. But Kevin ended up liking someone else very soon after this kiss. A very pretty girl called Renee. I kind of got my feelings hurt, but I acted like I couldn't care less. Doing so required I move on to bigger and better things. And when I say bigger, I mean taller. I was really tall. Kevin was not. Once Kevin and I had walked hand in hand through the school courtyard, and a saucy friend of mine said, "Girl, you look like you're walking your son." Maybe it was all for the best. Boys were fun, and there were so many to choose from. Making out became a favorite pastime. That's all I ever did, kiss them. It's not that some guys didn't try to get me to do more. One guy, a high schooler, a couple of years older than me, took me for a ride in his dad's Impala. We parked in the hills and the makeout session began. He at one point asked me if I would like to get more comfortable. In my innocence, I said, okay, and shifted in my seat and pushed my hair back behind my shoulders. From his reaction, I could see that wasn't what he had in mind. He asked if he could help, and he reached around behind me and started to unhook my bra. Oh, hell no. I was not taking any clothes off. With or without the fact that my religion gave me rules to keep my morals clean, I knew I wasn't ready for more. Not yet. That's probably part of the reason I changed my mind every other week about who I liked. Things could never really progress past kissing, so I could keep my Christian conscience clean. There was one boy in particular, though, that was very special to me. Dwayne. He was in a class with Cindy, and he told her that he liked me. I was so excited to hear this because I thought he was the cutest guy in school. He had long, straight brown hair and big brown eyes. I loved the way he dressed, the way he walked, the color of his skin. He literally was too cool for school. Cindy told him I liked him back. Cindy, our matchmaker du jour, arranged for us to meet after school. In dramatic fashion, he asked me, "Will you go with me?" That was our version of going steady. I said yes. Then came the kiss. The kiss. He walked me halfway home. We always walked home through the back alleys of residential neighborhoods. We stopped in the alley behind an old brick church under the shade of an ancient blooming oak tree. He turned to me and reached slightly up to kiss my lips. That first time when our lips met, the ground dropped out from underneath my feet. I had never had a kiss like this. It was like everything I had ever imagined love to be. That first kiss went on for several minutes. I can remember my hand touching the skin under his shirt. Just that touch felt like electricity. Neither one of us wanted it to end. So every day after school, we would meet, walk down the alley, enjoy the very best part of our day. This sublime activity made up our entire relationship. We didn't really even know each other at all, but our connection was magical. Dwayne and I broke up a few short months after. I had heard rumors that he was flirting with another girl. Guess who? Renee. What is it with her? Well, I wasn't going to be made a fool of, so I told Dwayne I want to break up. I moved on. I know it sounds rash. I was 13, and I think I was afraid of getting hurt. I knew it would have hurt a lot more with Dwayne. He was special to me, different than I'd felt about any other guy. There was always other cute guys around to distract me, but I always kept a special place in my heart for Dwayne. There was just something about him. And I'm going to go right into chapter 12. In high school, I tried to stay focused on being a good student and being a good little Christian girl, at least for a while. Still pretty boy crazy, but fear and guilt kept me trying to only date guys from the church. I wasn't even supposed to be dating at all at my age, according to the church, but I was a teenage girl. Nothing could stop me. I met a new guy from another JW congregation who was a few years older than me. My cousin had liked him for a while. That's how I'd met him. My first impression of him was when a big group of us kids went out for pie after church one night. We went to Coco's in Pasadena. Everyone was scrambling to sit by who they liked, by the cool kids, the fun kids. With the table jammed with teenagers and not a seat to be found, a shy, awkward girl stood with nowhere to sit. The new guy immediately jumped up and told her to take his chair. Then he went and fetched another chair and wedged it next to her. He treated her like she was special and wanted. I thought right then, this is a good guy. He was funny, smart, loved music, and loved to hang out with me. Our friendship would begin with him always talking to me about my cousin, who he liked, and me always talking about his brother that I had a crush on. He would pick me up before school and we would hang out all day. We were both into music. It was our everything. We were always sharing our favorites with each other. He loved Jethro Tull, Queen, and Styx. I loved the Kinks, Supertramp, and Alan Parsons Project. Oh my God, we had fun. As a water heater repairman, he drove an olive green windowed Chevy van filled with tools, plumbing supplies, Red Vine's licorice, and row upon row of 8-track tapes. We ravaged our eardrums, blasting whatever tunes we were into. He knew every word to every song and sang along loudly as he utilized the steering wheel and dashboard as a full drum set and bounded in his seat to the melody. He became my best friend. We hung out every day. We told each other everything and spent most of our time together, making each other laugh. We had moments where we thought it was more than friendship, but they were brief. We even kissed a couple of times and then would feel awkward around each other and would agree that we were just friends. It was like this for more than a year. He would often pick me up at my bus stop and I'd go to work with him instead of going to school. I didn't think twice about playing hooky. We'd stop for donuts and then maybe go to a record store to buy new music. One morning, we stopped somewhere in the valley to check out a licorice pizza record store. He bought 10cc's album Deceptive Bends on 8-track, of course. We played it in the van all day as we traveled to Calabasas, where he repaired a water heater. I wore his tool belt on the job site to look like I was working with him. Like anybody bought that. We never got tired of sharing music and talking all day. I saw him almost every day and went to work with him most of those days. These were the days when schools didn't call home when you didn't show up for class. I missed dozens of classes before the school sent home a letter asking why I had been marked absent more than 20 times with no excuse. Oh shit. This was a fun afternoon. My silence, red face, and terror of repercussions overwhelming me while trying to apologize, explain, and beg for mercy from mom and stepdad. I got in pretty big trouble. Of course, I didn't tell anybody what I was doing when I wasn't in school, so he still was able to come to the house and hang out all the time. But I had to cool it on the ditching. Either that or practice my mom's signature to perfection. After months and months of hanging out every day, we were like peanut butter and jelly. We were always together, and people didn't expect to see one of us without the other. But one day he came by before school after a week or two of not being around as much as normal. No big deal, but I was wondering where he'd been spending his time. This day he told me. He said he'd been driving to Huntington Beach to see his old girlfriend, that he'd asked her to marry him. What? I was shocked. First, because he'd always expressed to me how much he didn't really like her that much. I think that was true, but I think that he was attracted to her physically. Like any other red-blooded 19-year-old, he was probably ready for some action. I don't blame him for that. Hell, waiting till you're 19 is being patient. In our church, you're not allowed to have sex before marriage, and if you did, you'd get in a heap of trouble. Disfellowshipping was probable. So we sat in his van that morning, and he played a song which he dedicated to me, "You're My Best Friend" by Queen. I was in my sophomore year of high school at this point. He said he couldn't wait 2 or 3 more years to have sex, meaning he might marry me if I was old enough. I don't know all the reasons why, but I began to cry. I turned to look out the window of the van as Freddie crooned, "I want you to know that my feelings are true. I really love you." I didn't want him to see I was hurt because I didn't want him to feel bad. After all, I didn't like him like that, did I? It took me a bit of time to get over it. I felt bad for a long while. But I thought I had no right to be sad. We weren't dating. We were just friends. A few short months after that, I attended his wedding with a smile. I felt twinges of jealousy watching them recite their vows and kiss and dance as husband and wife. But I found some cute guys to dance with and tried to forget all that. We didn't hang out much after that. His wife wasn't too keen on me coming over to their apartment or him coming over to my house anymore. So I saw less and less of my best friend. So this is an introduction to a very important character in my story. As you can see, I don't use his name. He who shall not be named. But anyway, you'll get a whole lot more information about him down the road, even though he got married. And I thought these chapters were really good just in terms of first getting interested in, when you're going through puberty and you're interested in sex and all that stuff, the restrictive rules that the organization gives, and also you're restricted within the organization so much, so you only get to meet so many people, and you're not supposed to date until you're old enough to get married, and it's a crazy way to go into that portion of your life. Not saying that other people in really religious families or whatever don't have the same kind of conflicts and issues and everything, but it creates a situation where suddenly young people have to hide everything from their parents. And being a mom of grown kids now, I love the fact that my kids can talk to me about anything and they don't have to be afraid of sharing whatever, and they haven't been since I stopped being a witness, because you don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. You just listen to what feels right to you, what feels safe and mentally and emotionally healthy for yourself or for your kids or whatever. So these chapters just kind of highlight the fact that the organization really, it keeps you in that little tiny box of certain group of people that you are allowed to have feelings for, and also restricts just the natural progression of growing up, and especially makes it not okay in families for kids to not be able to be honest with their parents. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully there's a bunch of JW parents who are okay with their kids talking about their crushes and their feelings and stuff like that, but definitely wasn't the way it was in my house. It was like, can't even act like you know that boys exist. So then meeting this guy who eventually got married was like heartbreaking when he got married, even though I didn't think I liked him like that. We seemed to be just friends, but our bond was very special. So you will find out more about him, and I am so glad you joined me. I hope you join me for the next one. And again, I'll put all the links in the description for purchasing the book and for the other chapters. So if you need to get caught up on any of those. Thank you so much and have a great one.